Number 10. The hypocrisy. Lizzo may have been a public advocate for body positivity, but as part of the lawsuit being brought against her, it seems like all of that positivity may have just been some act that she was putting on to make herself more universally loved. Now, I am not a small man. In fact, I have what many people consider to be a dad bod, and I'm cool with it. So, I'm not dismissing the notion that we should love and respect ourselves, but she made it a massive part of her personality on camera when it sounds like the only body she actually cared about was her own. According to her dancers, Lizzo regularly shamed her team and made them feel that they were too large or gaining weight, with several dancers confirming these allegations. Liz made several posts over the years spreading the positive body image, but now she's being called out for being a massive hypocrite, which she 100% is. That's like the government telling you not to do something when they just do it anyway. They would never do that. Right? Number 9. The leaked meeting. One of the dancers, Crystal Davies, who was a part of the lawsuit, was fired for secretly recording a meeting between herself and Lizzo. The meeting was about the dancer's performance on stage recently and Lizzo's apparent dislike of the weight that she had been gaining, claiming that she wasn't committing to her role. Initially, Davies only planned on recording the conversation for personal reasons. She has a condition that leaves her disoriented sometimes, and she wanted a backup on the off chance that she forgot what the meeting was about. After it was discovered that the audio recording existed, the dancer was promptly fired, apparently being pulled into a meeting just to get yelled at before they let her go, not even giving her a chance to speak. Lizzo exacting her star power to simply end the career of one of her main backup dancers is insane and is most certainly worth the lawsuit coming her way. Number 8. Her party lifestyle. One key factor of this lawsuit being brought against Lizzo is the place in which all these accusations went down. Lizzo was at a club in Amsterdam's red light district when she coerced, aka forced, one of her dancers to touch a woman's bare chest, despite saying several times that it was not something that she wanted to do. Facts are, this actually isn't the first time that Lizzo has been seen living it up at the club. Over the past few years, she's been known to be a regular party girl, spending a solid amount of time between touring to have just a good time and celebrate her success. But the amount in which she has been partying, despite being such an advocate for positivity, is wild. For someone who shares this message of loving yourself, she sure likes to drink the no-no juice, not to mention throwing her money around at every chance she gets. Nobody wants to talk about it, but that night in Amsterdam probably cost them a fortune. I don't know, I've never been. Moving on. Number 7. She made the dancers eat fruit. Alright, let's get into this Amsterdam situation. According to the lawsuit, Lizzo coerced her dancers to go out with her to a nightclub in the city's red light district. And once they arrived at the club, it was brought to their attention that the club encouraged dancers to wear their birthday suits. Dancers would also perform special shows in which they would launch things from their catapults. Nope, I don't like that one. Lizzo's team were encouraged to catch the launched items, which included various adult objects, and at one point the dancers were apparently encouraged to eat bananas that had been protruding from their fruit baskets. No, that's worse somehow. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Lizzo then told her crew to come with her to a club in Paris that was specifically filled with servers and staff wearing nothing at all. All the dancers were shocked and they were robbed of their choice to not attend. I think we can all agree being handed your food by someone in nothing but kitchen shoes sounds pretty uncomfortable. This is when Lizzo had heavily encouraged dancer Miss Davies to touch one performer on her chest, which she clearly did not want to do, but her boss yelled at her and told her to do it, so you know how that goes. Just an overall weird night, and I'm not even mildly shocked that someone came forward to call this out. Shady. Number 6. The dance captain. Lizzo is not the only person being named in this lawsuit. Her dance captain, Shirlene Quigley, is also facing a slew of accusations. According to the suit, Quigley shared lewd physical fantasies with dancers and the crew, and publicly discussed the purity of one performer while simultaneously berating all other dancers who had premarital relations. Now, sharing your beliefs is one thing, but trying to jam them down the throat of your employees, that's not a great move. According to several dancers from the past few years, whenever this woman was around, she was a nightmare, not only spouting her religious beliefs at anyone who had ears, but also attempting to convert several of the crew members. Quigley is being named personally in this lawsuit for creating a hostile work environment, having extreme racial biases, discrimination towards disabled employees, and a failure to prevent or remedy the situation. Number 5. Lizzo tried to distract us. Lizzo is just like the rest of the world. When she's had a few too many adult beverages, she's unable to keep her hands off her phone. According to a TikTok TikTok post from earlier this year, though, Lizzo admitted to sliding into Captain America star Chris Evans' DMs. She had apparently sent him emojis of dashing away, women playing handball, and a basketball. Now, I'm no detective, but was this supposed to be like, I'm coming to you, Chris, balls in your court? Who knows what she meant. But to follow up that message, she released a TikTok in which she lip-synced to an audio clip. You know, that thing that makes people tons of money for doing absolutely nothing on an app. I was going to quote it, but I can't physically type things from TikTok because my brain starts to twitch. So it's my least favorite app in the world right now, and that includes Flappy Bird. The fact that she openly admitted to not only overindulging in no-no juice, but also directly suggesting that Chris's butt, his ball is in her net. I don't know what the emojis mean. Many fans believe she brought this to their attention to save some face when the official lawsuit was released, possibly knowing that this was coming for quite some time. Number 4, her TV show. Now, Watch Out for the Big Girls is a TV show that only recently came into my life thanks to doing research for this video. The series premiered last year and follows Lizzo as she hunts for confident women to join her world tour as dancers. In fact, among the many cast members on the show were 2 of the 3 plaintiffs in this case, Ariana Davies and Crystal Williams. The show is just one of the many tactics that she seems to have used to make herself look better when the truth got revealed. Despite the show being a search for new talent, it turned into some kind of like a shield that she could use. How could Lizzo be so mean when she had a whole show dedicated to giving people jobs? Well, following the news of the suit, many people have called to question why Lizzo would work on the project when she's such an advocate for body positivity. Well, with no word from Lizzo yet as to her side of the story, the world is quickly canceling her from society, and we may just end up having to add her to our top 10 destroyed careers of 2023. Number 3, the hostile work environment. Lizzo created an extremely hostile work environment according to the plaintiffs, with several examples that have been backed up by former dancers and even some people involved with the documentary that she was trying to get off the ground. According to the plaintiffs, Lizzo made them work ridiculous hours, including up to 12-hour rehearsal days, and one of the dancers recounted an experience of having to use the washroom and being forced to do it in her pants while rehearsing so that she didn't lose any time. Like, Lizzo, if someone has to use the bathroom, let them go. Yeah, just let them go. It took longer for them to get the poor woman a new change of clothes than it would have taken her to go take 5, you know? Like, next time just let them pee. Let them pee in peace. In fact, as a form of humiliation on the part of Lizzo and her dance coach, they made Davies wear a see-through garment with nothing underneath and finish her day in front of the entire crew. Now, if that is not the definition of a toxic workplace, I'm not sure what is. Number 2, claimed that the dancers were drinking. Lizzo has made many claims regarding the women involved in this case, but one of the most outlandish is the idea that the backup dancers were indulging in no-no juice before every show. Lizzo claimed that the backup crew was lacking in energy, simply going with the motions and getting off the stage quickly as possible. This caused Lizzo to accuse several of the dancers on her team of partying before they were supposed to do their jobs. Dancer Crystal Williams spoke out against the claim immediately, reminding Lizzo about the 12-hour rehearsal days and constant mental strain from working beneath her, being a contributing factor to the so-called dip in energy. Trying to claim that your crew has been slacking when they have the receipts? It's a bad move on Lizzo's part and will surely be one of the several reasons that she's cancelled this year. Number 1, she has said nothing. By far the shadiest thing of all, and the thing taking the top spot on this list, is the fact that Lizzo has said nothing about this at all, and it's not to say that she isn't aware of the suit. In fact, she posted on Instagram 3 separate times on the day that the news broke, but it had nothing to do with the lawsuit. Not only does that mean that she had her phone and was very capable of reading the news, but that she blatantly ignored the possibly thousands of comments and messages she is surely receiving. When something like this happens, it's important that the person being accused of the misdeeds to come forward and either fess up or deny everything. There's no in between. Being silent is the worst thing that you can do. It gives the internet more time to circulate negative stuff, and eventually it'll take over anything good that you try to do and will land you in a realm where no one can hear your screams or cries. Now, Lizzo could very well be taking her sweet time to draft up a proper statement so she doesn't actually say something wrong that the court can use later. Makes sense, because let's face it, this is about to be a rough few months for this woman. I'd wish her luck, but like a lot of people have backed up everything that's being said, so yeah. Number 10, Issa Rae. Issa is just one of the many people who plays the iconic iconic doll in this film. She's a welcome addition to the cast, and she is no stranger to the world of comedy, having starred and written in a very popular sketch series called A Black Lady Sketch Show. When she was asked to participate in the movie, she was beyond excited. As the process went on, she was reading with other potential cast members, during which time she finally realized that she would not be the only Barbie in the movie. Initially, she was under the impression that she was going to be the leading lady of Greta's flick, but discovered that she was just going to be one of several other actors set to portray variants of the character. As production began, her enthusiasm dropped hard. Imagine thinking that you're playing a lead character only for someone to come on set one day and say, "Alright guys, make room for the lead." No, I'm not talking about you. As a result, her time on set was stressful and slightly upsetting. But she didn't want to back out entirely and ventured on to make her mark in the Barbie world. Number 9. Ryan Gosling. This Canadian treasure has been acting since his mid-teens in a little show called Goosebumps. I'm not sure why so many studios made horror-themed kids shows, but they did, and we watched them and loved them all. His career has been going strong since starring in The Notebook, but he's been thrust back into the mainstream thanks to his turn as the leading Ken in Barbie. While he enjoyed his overall time on set, cause hey, he was the lead, he was being fed grapes by a PA getting paid nothing. One thing that was difficult according to Ryan though was learning how to skate for this movie. There are several scenes with Ryan having to rollerblade, a skill that he did not possess in real life. That's right, some Canadians can't skate, and I'm one of them. The director Greta Gerwig wanted to have as few stunt people on set as possible, so she tasked Ryan with taking a crash course in skating. Despite working hard for almost a month, he wasn't able to get to that smooth Olympic skate style that he was aiming for, and according to several reviews, Ryan's skating is pretty dreadful in the movie. This was a lot of pressure for Ryan on set, having to try and try again during takes, falling over and over again. His time on set was spent in fear of disappointing Greta and the rest of the crew, and unfortunately it looks like he was right to be nervous. Number 8. John Cena. In 2002, John Cena first rapped his way to the ring, becoming one of the most popular superstars in the WWE. John was a wrestler for many years, and I personally grew up watching this dude throw people through tables and wave his hand in front of his face. John had a massive fan base that were stoked to see that he was slowly making a transition from just wrestling to acting in big budget projects. While he had some straight-to-video projects as well as a few small roles in movies here or there, it wasn't until 2018 that he would cement himself as a Hollywood heavyweight. After starring in the comedy Blockers, as well as the surprisingly entertaining Transformers prequel Bumblebee, it was clear that John was going to be around for a long time. Recently, he's been trying to make a move to the more action-packed side of comedy, starring as the titular Peacemaker in an HBO series based on his performance in the 2020 DC movie called The Suicide Squad. When it was announced that John would be appearing in the Barbie movie, fans were pretty curious. Why was he taking time away from his action-packed movies and to star in this lighthearted comedy about a doll come to life? Well, it turns out that he just needed a break from all the physically demanding stunts that he was doing on other projects. In fact, John hated working on the set of Barbie because he had simultaneously been filming a role alongside action movie legend Jackie Chan, and according to John, the demanding stunts combined with a need to be on the same level as Jackie caused his body to ache constantly. In between takes on set, John had to sit in a little chair while sipping a freshly blended protein smoothie. Ugh, that sounds gnarly. Number 7. Helen Mirren. Helen has been starring in silver screen darlings since the mid-1970s and has continued to deliver stellar performances to this day. She plays the role of the narrator in the Barbie movie and does an incredible job doing so. She's able to engage the audience despite not actually physically being on screen, which was her biggest problem with the movie. In an original draft of the script, the end of the movie would have seen Helen physically on screen, reading a Barbie book to her granddaughter, pegging the entire movie as simply a woman giving her grandkid a nice bedtime story. Honestly, I'm pretty glad that that was not the ending of this movie because it was just a story trope is just really old and played out, and this movie is so unique, it would have been a cop-out of an ending. Unfortunately, the news that the ending would be changed upset Helen as she was excited to be a physical part of the film. To help her feel better though about her role, Greta invited her to take a tour on the set and get a first-hand look at what she was narrating. The more times she visited the set, the more accepting she was of not being in the movie, but still being a vital part of the story. Number 6. Simu Liu. A few years ago, Simu Liu was just a guy working on a Canadian sitcom that had a massive fan base. Thanks to one tweet, he was thrust into the role of Shang-Chi, Marvel's first solo superhero movie featuring an Asian lead. The movie received massive success at the box office and launched Simu into a new career. And it's well earned because this guy is genuinely the sweetest dude in the world. I used to work at a movie theater and I watched this man get surrounded by fans, and all he he did was smile, stand there, and ask them to make a line. He literally took a picture with every single person and said hi that was in that line. This dude is just awesome. I mean, he just wanted to see Rocket Man, so that was nice of him to stop by and say hello. It appears that joy and charm translates to his time on set as well. According to Simu, he was barely able to keep it together around his co-star Ryan Gosling. The pair spent a large amount of screen time together, but that surely doesn't begin to compare to the amount of behind-the-scenes footage that surely exists. Simu was initially excited to simply be a part of this awesome movie, but was even more excited when he made a new friend. According to Greta Gerwig, they broke character a lot and would make each other laugh to the point where they needed to take regular 10-minute breaks to let them get their composure together. This may be the first time these two work together, but hopefully it will not be the last. Number 5. Michael Cera. Michael Cera was a busy man between 2000 and the mid-2010s, starring in critically acclaimed comedies and dramatic flicks like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Superbad, and Juno. Following a brief break from acting, Michael has been making a return to the big screen, adding Barbie to his list of accomplishments, playing the much forgotten about Barbie doll companion, Alan, a doll that was produced by Mattel for only 1 year in 1964 before being pulled off of shelves because for some reason kids just didn't like him. When Michael accepted the role in Barbie, he was under the impression that he was going to be a Ken like the rest of the guys on set, but instead he was given a unique role as the misunderstood Barbie buddy. His time on set was a mixed bag of emotions. At first, he was super upset at having to play a character that was literally cancelled before canceling was even a thing. It wasn't until the middle of shooting that his feelings started to shift, after he realized that his character wasn't just going to be some throwaway joke, but an actual person with character development. He fell deep into the role and he became Alan. If you need any proof, just watch this movie and enjoy the dance sequences. You know the ones. Number 4. Kingsley Ben-Adir. Kingsley has only been in the mainstream acting world since 2020 when he portrayed real-life human rights activist Malcolm X in the film One Night in Miami. Since then, he's been a busy bee, and apart from being casted in the Barbie movie, he recently began portraying the character of Gravik, the Skrull, in the Marvel TV series Secret Invasions. Man, for anyone who doesn't watch Marvel, that's gonna sound like gibberish. Kingsley is playing one of the many Ken variants that will be appearing in this movie. Despite his time on set being minimal compared to that of his fellow Kens, it was anything but ice cream and dance sequences. The entire time he was on set, he only had one thing on his mind. When the heck will this thing be over so I can get back to making more Disney money? The character Gravik is currently still alive and very much kicking in the MCU. Even if his character does get, taken out, that never seems to stick for more than a year or two. He wanted nothing more than to return to the world of Marvel, where he not only plays a supervillain, but spoiler alert to anyone that hasn't watched the show yet, he has all of the superpowers. He became the very first Super Skrull, and Skrulls are people who can shapeshift. You know what? I'm not gonna go on. If you ever just go watch every Marvel project ever so you can understand this 2-minute entry on my list. Basically, the reason he didn't like being on set was because he just couldn't stop thinking about how cool he would look with a tree arm. Number 3. Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell is best known as someone who makes people laugh, and it's rarely because he's the bad guy. Yes, he's been a villain a few times in movies like Zoolander and the Lego Movie, but those characters were outlandish and they were never actually considered to be villainous. His turn as the evil CEO of Mattel has been well received, but fans agree that he's surprisingly good at playing a bad guy. Like, it's suspiciously good. A talent which Will is not proud of. Will is considered to be one of the nicer people to work with in Hollywood, and he tends to bring a solid sense of joy to the set. While he was playing the role of the CEO, he would have to apologize constantly on set for the fear that he may be just too good at faking his evil. His time on set was spent wishing that he could have just played a different character, but I've personally not seen the movie yet, but for all I know, Will Ferrell has the most redemptive arc of the movie. Heck, maybe he even roller skates or something. Maybe he becomes a Ken. We'll just have to wait and see. Number 2. The Mattel President. The COO of the toy giant Mattel, Richard Dixon. Okay, that sounds like a fake name. Richard has been in charge of the company's marketing, development, and strategy teams since the mid-2010s. When the initial offer came for a Barbie movie to be made, Richards wasn't exactly stoked about the idea. Barbie had been a staple in the world of toys and, for some reason, animated kids movies for a very long time. The idea of stripping that down to create some big-budget Hollywood movie didn't sound very appealing at all. When Greta Gerwig delivered the first draft of the script, his tune seemed to shift. Richard Richard, along with a few other executives, made the decision to go forward on the project, but they would need to keep a close eye on the progression of things. This meant that a man from the company was always on set, monitoring every little move made by the cast and crew. Mattel were on edge the entire time this movie was being made, especially considering that Will Ferrell was playing a fictionalized version of their CEO. This is one of their biggest and most profitable properties to date. A live-action movie, especially one with such star power, will either bring a lot more of that sweet cash through the door, or make the company look like a laughingstock. And at number 1, Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie may be perfect to portray the iconic Barbie doll come to life, but she wasn't very confident throughout filming. Of course, Margot is a stellar actor, and I have personally enjoyed a lot of her work, but there is a lot of pressure on her shoulders as she's taking on a very difficult job. Whenever someone is casted in a pre-existing role, everybody's got an opinion about it. When she was casted as Harley Quinn in 2016, there was a massive debate on whether she could pull it off or not, and they ended up giving her 3 movies. So she pulled it off. This time around, Margot has expressed her nervousness about playing such an iconic character. Barbie is supposed to be a doll that inspires young women to explore their passions and be whatever they want to be, and the mission of the movie is to translate that to screen. So far, the reviews for Barbie are nothing but positive, as it currently sits at a whopping 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Margot may have spent the majority of her time on set being nervous of her reception from past Barbie owners, but so far this is looking like it's going to be her best performance yet. Number 10, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay was one of the most unavoidable stars in Hollywood in the early 2000s. Not only was she one of Disney's go-to girls, starring in movies like Herbie and Get a Clue, but she was also becoming a force to be reckoned with in the world of Hollywood. After being casted as Katie in the popular comedy Mean Girls, she was thrust into a small but successful career working with people like Jamie Lee Curtis, Rachel McAdams, and Chris Pine. Unfortunately, she fell off of the map a few years ago after her 6th stint in a rehabilitation center following substance control issues. Career failures, toxic relationships, and a lost love caused her to collapse. She has slowly been able to get back on her feet and recently starred in a Netflix rom-com called Falling for Christmas, which is why it surprised many writers to learn that she was not going to be joining the picket line in solidarity. In fact, she'll be staying home and watching from a window while slowly sipping a coffee mug. Apparently, Lindsay is under the impression that she's already made her money from Netflix and doesn't need a new project anytime soon. Joke's on her, when the strike hopefully ends, people will remember who was and wasn't there to help when they're rebooting The Parent Trap. Number 9, Lea Michele. Lea has been starring on the small screen for quite some time now, and is possibly best known for her role on the popular series Glee, which turned out to not be as fun and vibrant behind the scenes as it was on screen. In 2020, Lea came under fire after her former Glee co-stars accused the actress of mean girl behavior, microaggressions, and straight up just being a jerk on set. According to a Twitter post from former co-star Samantha Ware, who starred as Jane in season 6, Lea actually expressed that if she had the chance to go poo-poo in Samantha's wig, that she would take it. Now, I'm not allowed to swear online, but I can say poo-poo like a toddler. Other co-stars claimed similar acts of aggression, even claiming that she made some comments considering to be heavily racist. Following the accusations, she issued an apology for her actions. This was just to shut people up. Now that she's been asked to participate in the picket lines, her answer will surely be a resounding nothing. Number 8, Chevy Chase. Chase had an incredibly successful career starring in several projects in the late 70s and continuing through the early 90s. Caddyshack, Fletch, and of course the National Lampoon series helped thrust this man into the status of comedy legend. That status has slowly become tainted over the years thanks to his years of hard partying and public controversy. When he was cast to star in the popular comedy series Community, it was seen as a resurgence for the actor, who ended up starring in 83 episodes of the series as Pierce Hawthorne, who, it turns out, had a lot in common with Chevy's real-life personality. Pierce is racist, has old-school beliefs on women's place in the world, and he's just overall mean to his friends. One person in particular that he was mean to was the writer and director and creator of the show, Dan Harmon. According to Dan, Chase was impossible to work with, even walking off set during a scene because he didn't like the direction. Dan eventually called him out during a rap party for season 3, but it was so rage-fueled that he was fired for his behavior. Why? Which is probably why season 4 is just so god-awful. He was asked to return for season 5 after the studio realized their mistake and wrote Pierce out of the show. It turns out Chevy was being super racist towards his colleagues, being so jealous of Donald Glover's ability as a performer to the point where he would blow up on him regularly for basically no reason. It should come as no shock that Chevy doesn't give a single care in the world about the writer's strike. He only hopes that Dan is out there melting in the heat. Number 7. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf cemented himself as a quality actor following his role as Stanley Yelnats in the 2003 Disney movie Holes. After that, it was nothing but contracts and cocktails for LaBeouf, being casted in movies left and right, from iRobot to Constantine to Transformers. But something happened to him around 2013 when he decided to get introspective and start directing his own short films that were just odd and very poorly received. He slowly started going nuts in the eye of the public too. In 2014, he was arrested outside of a Broadway theater after being disruptive during a show, apparently standing up to yell at the audience and the people on stage, and repeatedly lighting a cancer stick despite that being super illegal. It wasn't until 2017 that he officially cemented himself as the most controversial man in Hollywood, following several public outbursts, with one resulting in him being arrested. He took a brief break from acting after, being forced to because he got put behind bars, until 2019 when he had 2 movies premiere with massive success, Peanut Butter Falcon and Honey Boy. But this dude just can't stop kicking himself out of things. He was supposed to be in Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry Darling as Florence Pugh's husband, but he was kicked out last minute after a screaming match with one of the film's producers during pre-production, a role that ultimately went to Harry Styles, who is an actor now, I guess. Shia wants no part in the SAG strike, and in fact, he has decided to stay quiet and in his little hobbit hole that's hidden somewhere deep in the Hollywood hills. Hope you're comfy, buddy. Number 6. Katherine Heigl. Kathy was once the busiest woman in Hollywood. Between 2003 and 2012, she had starred in several critically acclaimed comedies and rom-coms, as well as working steady on popular TV dramedy Grey's Anatomy. Unfortunately, Katherine doesn't know how to keep her comments to herself. After starring alongside Seth Rogen in the comedy Knocked Up, she became very vocal on the fact that she hated the project and felt that it was a terrible representation of herself and her ability as a female performer. This, combined with her comments about Grey's Anatomy writers being terrible at their jobs and giving her very little to work with, pegged her as a difficult woman to work with. Since then, she not only had a terrible time trying to get new roles, she was also written out of Grey's Anatomy the very next season. When she first got wind of an actor's strike, she had just finished doing an exposé on Grey's Anatomy's behind the scenes for Vanity Fair. Her mind was somewhere else entirely, and it appears to have stayed there, as she has no plans to join the picket lines nor support her colleagues in any way, shape, or form. Oh, shocker. Number 5. Casey Affleck. Casey Affleck was pretty busy in the late 2010s. In fact, his dramatic role in Manchester by the Sea gained him the Oscar for Best Actor in 2016. He portrayed the character Lee Chandler, a brooding, irritable loner who works as a handyman for a Boston apartment block. That description is also what many people use when speaking about Casey as a person in general. Apparently, the brother to Batman, Ben Affleck, grew up so deep in the shadow of his brother that all of the personality he had was sucked out of him and left in a jar somewhere in their basement. Since winning his Oscar, he's actually laid pretty low from the world of Hollywood, only starring in a handful of films that varied from being super interesting to just friggin' confusing. What was the snowman? The SAG strike actually comes at an interesting time in his career. Casey is currently set to star alongside several Hollywood heavyweights in Christopher Nolan's latest movie, Oppenheimer, a movie which I literally can't watch for over a week because it's already sold out everywhere. With the massive amounts of cash that this flick is about to make, Casey has decided to just sit back, relax, have a cup of tea, and wait for this all to just blow over. Number 4. Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin has been a controversial man for a long time. Well before he accidentally ended someone's life on set of his newest film, Rust, he was spending his time as a tyrant behind the scenes. Several stories have surfaced in recent years of Alec's toxic behavior towards both his colleagues and his family. He infamously yelled at his daughter in a voicemail and called her things not worth repeating. He's also been known to be snippy with people on set, especially towards production assistants. You know, the people who get ya stuff. Since 2021, Alec has been trying to win a court case, claiming that he should not receive any kind of jail time or cancellation as the slaying on set was an accident. In January of this year, he finally faced criminal charges, but will not be made to serve any jail time, despite the sum of 5 years being thrown on that table. Turns out if you're super rich, people just kinda help you get stuff, you know? Isn't that special? So yeah, Alec's not joining the SAG strike anytime soon. Number 3. Mike Myers. Mike Myers is considered to be a Canadian comedy treasure despite having a reputation for being just a very difficult man to work with on set. He may be able to play fun and exciting characters on screen, but it turns out that in the real world he's just an absolute jerk, not very good at making decisions in his career. Dieter was a German TV host who has an unhealthy obsession with monkeys. The movie was about to be made, but Mike pulled out at the last minute, citing issues with the script that he helped write. He was actually sued by Universal Studios and Imagine Entertainment until they all got together in a room, dropped their lawsuits, and decided to work on a different project. Cat in the Hat. I'm sorry, I should have warned everyone that was going to happen. There's a picture probably. I'm sorry, I should have warned you there was going to be a photo on your screen of that. Good God. Pretty scary stuff. Ever since he starred in the 2008 comedy The Love Guru, which has aged about as well as the bag of lettuce in the back of my fridge for the last 3 months, his career has taken a noticeably dull turn, now only being casted in small cameo roles or making his own projects happen. As many may know, Mike enjoys playing multiple people on his projects, just in different makeup. He played 8 different characters for his latest TV show, The Pentaveret, which received mixed reviews, but proved that though the writers may be on strike, it will have little to no effect on this man, as he could just grab a camera, grab some wigs, and make his own darn movie. Number 2, Thomas Gibson. Thomas worked on the popular television series Criminal Minds for 12 seasons before he was suddenly fired by the studio. The Criminal Minds cast revolves fairly often, with most actors choosing to leave the show after only a handful of either episodes or whole seasons. Now, Thomas's character, Aaron Hotchner, wasn't actually written out of the show officially until episode 6 of season 12. The writers decided that his character would go into witness protection, which is pretty tame considering what they probably wanted to write. Thomas was fired from the show after an on-set physical altercation took place between Gibson and one of the show's writers/producers. The incident apparently took place after a disagreement during an episode of the show that Gibson was directing. So, if you think about it, jamming him in the witness protection program is better than jamming him in like a trunk or something. According to his fellow actors, that wasn't the first time Gibson had gotten physical on set. He had previously gotten into a dispute with an assistant director from the show and was forced to attend mandatory anger management counseling that clearly didn't work. Needless to say, Gibson's opinion on the strike is simply, suck it up, buttercup, do what I say. And at number 1, Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage takes our top spot on this list. Why? Well, this guy's been working so much in the past few years, he's literally sitting on a pile of cash right now. He has had several movies released with enough success to give Cage a chance to take a chill pill from the acting world. While the Writers Guild is striking, Nick is at home sifting through a pile of scripts that have been on his desk since 1991, labeled worst case scenario. Maybe, I don't know his life, probably pretty messed up if you think about it. This strike is definitely the last thing on his mind because it's just so full of other random nonsense, so he's probably not going to be out there anytime soon. Number 10, Kid Cudi. The day and night singer was in the middle of a concert in 2009 at Vancouver's Commodore Ballroom when a random and bizarre game of whose wallet is this began being played. Cudi picked up a wallet that had been thrown on stage by a fan, and when he attempted to toss it back into the audience, he apparently missed the person that it belonged to, and it landed in the hands of poor Michael Sharp. Michael was a big Kid Cudi fan, and in this moment, all he wanted to do was return the wallet to its rightful owner, which wasn't him. So he lightly tossed it back on stage, and that's when Kid Cudi snapped. He made eye contact with Michael and leaped at him, wildly flailing his arms around and eventually making contact with his face. At the end of the day, Michael decided not to press any charges, and we're not sure if that wallet ever got returned. Maybe Cudi keeps it in his pocket on stage now and just squeezes it when he's upset like a stress wallet. Imagine being at one of his shows and he's just on stage like, day and night, I want the bonus down the family. Number 9, Rihanna. If you've ever felt the urge to grab someone's clothes, especially a performer without their consent, allow me to inform you why that's not a good idea. Rihanna is known for many things around the world, mainly her ability to sing and dance, but what many people should know is that she is a Jedi with a microphone. During a concert in 2013 as part of her Diamonds World Tour, a fan at her Birmingham concert decided that she couldn't contain her excitement when Rihanna stepped into the crowd to greet fans while performing her hit single, We Found Love. As she made her way through the crowd, the fan in question reached over her bodyguards and got a grip of her elbow and sleeve and just tugged as hard as she could. And Rihanna was not having any of that. She turned to the fan, bopped her on the head with a microphone, and walked back on stage. Just being calm the entire time too, just like, Following the slew of anger she received for what many people consider to be an overreaction, she claimed that the whole thing was an accident. Yes, because swinging a 5-pound microphone at someone's head happens all the time, right? Well, apparently it does. Number 8, Lindsay Lohan. The Parent Trap star got herself trapped in a sticky situation that left her looking like a mean girl. Get it? In 2012, Lindsay was chilling in the VIP section of Club Avenue in New York City when she was approached by a woman named Tiffany Ava Mitchell. Mitchell is a psychic from Palm Beach, Florida, who, according to Extra TV, has been having premonitions about people since the age of 10. She saw Lindsay from across the room and felt inclined to tell her about her future. Lindsay was neither amused nor interested in what she had to say and dismissed her immediately. Oddly enough, though, her premonition was super negative. Apparently, Lindsay was in for a rough few years, but that never happened, right? Right, Lindsay? Right, Lindsay Lohan's PR team? She reportedly got furious with Tiffany and punched her in the face while calling her a gypsy woman. She was charged with third-degree swatting. While she was able to see that Lohan was headed for a rocky road, apparently she did not see that little tiny fist coming towards her face. Number 7. Cardi B. For some reason, people really like to throw stuff at people mid-performance, and Cardi is one of the many celebrities being targeted with thrown items while performing in this past year. During a show in Las Vegas last Saturday, Cardi was performing outdoors when a fan suddenly threw a drink on her mid-song, and in response, Cardi paused and whipped the microphone at them. Now, I do not condone violence of any kind towards anybody, but may I just say, nice. She handled that very well. The fan was quickly taken out of the crowd by security, and Cardi was handed back her battle axe, microphone. This reaction does not come out of nowhere though. If anything, she's just probably sick of hearing similar things happening to other artists. Harry Styles had to walk off stage at a concert during his Love on Tour show in Vienna. Apparently a fan pelted him in the eye with something, but Harry and Cardi are just some of many artists facing this issue. We're not sure why people are suddenly deciding to throw things at people on stage, but how about some stickers or like a nice thank you letter? Now, why does it have to be drinks and wallets? Number 6. Gigi Hadid. A man who will appear on this list more than once is a mega fan and mega jerk when it comes to interacting with celebrities. Take for instance, Gigi Hadid, a supermodel who was just minding her own business, making her way through a crowd outside of a fashion show in Milan in 2016. She was just trying to get to her car when suddenly a man named Cedric bear hugged her and lifted her off the ground. Hadid snapped like the eye of the tiger was blasting on full in her skull, and she elbowed him in the face and he dropped to the ground, being tossed around like a rag doll by security. This guy actually went online and tried to claim that he was gonna press charges, but everyone was quick to point out that Gigi was well within her rights to defend herself. She could have judo chopped him in the neck and he still would have been fine. Number 5. Justin Bieber. Where do we even begin with this guy? The one-time singer has a long history of negative interactions with fans since his first recorded incident in 2010. Justin was doing a concert in Toronto, and while staying at his hotel, a large crew of fans began to culminate outside the building. He took the opportunity to walk out on his balcony and spit on everybody, over and over, just dropping loogie after loogie. At the time, his representative denied that the footage was even authentic, claiming that TMZ had superimposed a crowd near Justin to make it appear like he was spitting on people. Well, not only did TMZ prove that that wasn't true, but the multiple cell phone cameras and, people with loogies on their heads that were there, they just kind of further proved his guilt. Since then, he's been in the news for reckless driving, public intoxication, he bought a monkey and abandoned it at a zoo, and in most recent years, Justin was on vacation in Mexico and began mooning tourists that were visiting the historic Mayan ruins. Several fans were counted attempting to interact with Bieber, who refused to not only speak to anyone, but he would actually snap and just start mooning them for asking. This all came to a head when Justin announced on Instagram that he would no longer be taking pictures with fans, claiming that the experience always felt dehumanizing. Fans were audibly upset and outraged by this announcement. No shocker there. If Justin wanted calm, cool, and collected fans, well, maybe he should have aimed his talents at an older audience. Number 4. Pitbull. In 2009, a fan made it rain on Pitbull during a concert and he did not have an umbrella. The famous singer was performing at a concert in Colorado when he invited a fan up on stage. The fan was clearly under the influence of something when he was brought up and apparently took the opportunity to make Pitbull look like a fool. The fan whipped out a large wad of crisp dollar bills and fanned them over Pitbull. Now, while it may have been funny at the time, Pitbull was not having any fun. After the fan started throwing the money at him, literally comparing him to a dancer of the night, Pitbull understandably told the man to stop before something bad happened. He told him to stop making it rain, to which the man went, "Oh, let's make it pour, baby!" And when he didn't stop, Pitbull punched him in the face as hard as he could. The man got knocked down, security took him away, and Pitt just kept rapping. He told the crowd that he was a nice guy during the next break to ease the tension. All the while, there was a guy just gargling his teeth in a hospital gurney in the back. Number 3. Akon. Anyone who's ever done stand-up comedy knows just how badly you want to punch a heckler. Hecklers are the worst. They come in, they ruin the show for everyone, and they think that they are the stars. In Akon's case, he did the thing that everybody wanted to do and showed his heckler exactly what happens when you mess with Akon. While performing at an outdoor concert in Fishkill, New York, Akon responded to an obnoxious teen fan in the crowd who had thrown something on stage. Oh look, more things being thrown. He responded by removing his shirt, inviting the fan on stage, lifting him over his shoulders and literally throwing him into the audience like John Cena dropping the attitude adjustment. While the fan was caught by the crowd and no harm was done, Akon was forced to appear a year later in a Fishkill courthouse to plead guilty to reduced charges brought on by the family of the young fan. The fan actually met Akon outside of the courthouse and the two cleared up the situation, but it was his father that wanted the man to pay up. And that is what he did, but he only paid about $350 to be specific. He was forced to serve 65 hours of community service and the money was just more of a gesture, you know, because he's worth over $80 million. Thankfully, the parents didn't seem to know that, or this story may have ended very differently. Number 2, Will Smith. Yes, Will Smith is on the list of people who have snapped at their fans, but it's not for what happened at the Oscars, okay? Chris Rock is not a fan. Apparently, Will has been swatting and slapping for a long time now. To his credit, though, he was able to hold back a lot considering this circumstance. In 2012, during the red carpet premiere of Men in Black 2, Will was taking interviews left and right, and one man named Vitaly Sedgwick, previously mentioned on this list, who's a Ukrainian prank star, pretended to be a journalist and started interviewing Will. While the interview itself is pure gibberish on Vitaly's part, the situation quickly took a turn when he tried to embrace Will in a hug. And at first, Will plays along and everything is fine, but then Vitaly goes in for a kiss. Smith's instinct kicked in and he threw Vitaly back away from himself. He asked him what his problem was before backhanding him and the crowd just roared. You see, in 2012, he was being cheered for smacking someone, and in 10 years later, he was canceled for doing the same thing to Chris Rock. Isn't that nice? Except Rock was just doing his job in that case, and this guy was being a jerk and deserved all of the backhands that Will was capable of. And at number 1, Kevin Gates. The famous rapper known around the world, Kevin Gates was forced to do a little bit of jail time following an incident on stage at a concert in 2015. Gates was performing at a club in Florida when a woman reached out for him in the front row. Anybody reaching at anyone that you don't know is jarring enough, but being in the middle of a concert, his ninja mode kicked in. During a video released to TMZ, a woman is seen simply trying to grab his leg in excitement like, "Oh my god, I love you." But his response to that light squeeze was a crane kick to the nose. Just whatcha! He just whips his leg towards the lady with full force. The woman he kicked is seen confused and in pain as she makes her way through the crowd and out of the venue. Apparently nobody saw or cared what happened because moments later they cheered him on stage for his next song. Not long after this show though, charges were filed by the former fan and Kevin was forced to spend 180 days in Polk County Jail. He was eventually released, but he was forced to wear a brace on his knee that prevents him from ever kicking someone ever again. Now that last part's made up, but that would be funny though, just watching a guy walk around like, "Come on, come at me, Kevin." He's just like, "I'm gonna get you." Number 10. Robert Pattinson. Alright Team Edward, time to cozy up with a fuzzy wolf pelt from your recent enemy and check this out. Robert has been stealing the show on the silver screen since being thrust into the mainstream following his role as Edward Cullen in the Twilight franchise. But recently he's donned the costume of a different Bat-themed character, this time as DC's newest Batman. The 3-hour film was released last year and received incredible reviews. The only sour one was from Jonah Hill. You see, during the casting process, Jonah was actually offered the role as one of the 3 main villains of the film, Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. And according to Robert, he turned down DC several times, apparently wishing to avoid the multi-contract deal that comes with playing a comic book character. Ryan Gosling follows this same principle and is the main reason that Jared Leto played the Joker in 2016's Suicide Squad rather than himself, which is... Sorry, I just get a weird flashback whenever I talk about that movie. Ugh. Jonah went on to say that his choice was well warranted as the film style and tone didn't really fit the type of performance that he wanted to give as the flightless bird-themed villain. Instead, they thought it would be a good idea to put Colin Farrell in a fat suit for 10 years, and Robert doesn't care for Jonah much anymore. So, there you go. Number 9, James Franco. James may exist in a small pocket of cancellation thanks to him being unable to keep his hands to himself, but he shared his opinion on Jonah after starring across from him in the 2015 drama thriller True Story. The film followed the true story of a disgraced New York Times reporter named Michael Finkel, who meets an accused killer, Christian Longo, who has taken on Frank's identity, but his investigation morphs into a game of cat and mouse. The film was underpromoted at the time and flew relatively under the radar. This would end up being the last time that these two ever collaborated, as James claims that Jonah was no longer the joyous man he once knew on set. He took the role very seriously, so much so that the project was treated as work and not a collaboration between two old friends. James was hoping to spend some time with Jonah off set, but was instead ignored and made to feel like he was Longo. In one of his final interviews, when asked about the project, James calls out Jonah by name as being wonderful on screen but quiet off set. Oh well, James did some gross stuff, and this is probably the first time you've heard about him in a while, whereas Jonah... yeah, never mind. Number 8, Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper may be getting paychecks for playing the Build-A-Bear come-to-life Rocket Raccoon in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, but most hopefully know him from the Hangover trilogy, one of the greatest comedy trilogies of all time. This trilogy follows 3 friends trying to piece together the wild night that they had before. They lose their friends on roofs, they steal monkeys, and Ken Jeong is in it, so yeah, it's pretty good. What many people may not know is that the role of Alan, played by Zach Galifianakis, was actually offered to Jonah Hill over 3 times before the team finally gave up. While there was no specific reason that he didn't want to participate in the project, a low-budget flick called Cyrus was released not long after The Hangover started production. It seemed that Jonah wanted to work in a more serious role instead of participating in what ended up being one of the highest-grossing comedy trilogies of all time. Cyrus was an okay movie, and I own it, so, you know, they had some money made from it. Bradley Cooper doesn't care how good it is, though. Not only did Jonah deny them 3 times, but doing it without explanation is just plain rude. Bradley actually attempted to give Jonah an olive branch and get him to make a brief cameo in The Hangover Part 2, but he denied that appearance too, and instead the role went to Paul Giamatti. So, Number 7, Miles Teller. Miles and Jonah worked together on a flick in 2016 called War Dogs, based on a true story of 2 young men, David Pecuz and Ephraim Vitaroli, who won a $300 million contract with the Pentagon to arm American allies in Afghanistan. It received massive critical acclaim, and I personally loved every single minute of it. According to Miles, his time on set with his co-star Jonah was interesting to say the least. Apparently, Jonah was actually livelier on this particular set than in more recent movies, which led to himself and Miles becoming very close. Whenever he is asked about the project, he takes a moment to shout out his partner in crime, Jonah Hill, claiming that the picture would never have been as successful were it not for his involvement. With the recent news that Jonah may be the baddest apple of them all, though, he's surely going to be revising that statement whenever asked about the project in the future. Number 6, Russell Brand. Get Him to the Greek was an ambitious spin-off movie that was released in 2010. It centered around 2 characters from the film Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Russell Brand, who played Aldous Snow, the man who steals Sarah from Jason Segel, and Jonah is their waiter / Aldous' biggest and strangest fan at the Hawaiian resort that we spend most of the movie in. Get Him to the Greek takes those characters and gives them room to live and breathe. We find out that Jonah's character is actually an intern at a record label who is tasked with accompanying Aldous Snow to a concert at LA's Greek Theater. The flick is filled with outlandish set pieces, wild nights out, and Jeffries. Whenever Russell is asked about his opinion on the movie, he calls it his magnum opus. He feels his performance during the flick was the best representation of his acting skills, being able to be gross and funny at the same time. He's called out Jonah for making time on set difficult, as Jonah is an improviser and he would change lines and throw Russell off a lot. Most of the improvised moments made it into the final project and is probably the majority of the reason that the flick did so well. Number 5, Sam Rockwell. Sam had the joy of working with Mr. Hill on one of his worst movies ever made. The Sitter, a comedy released in 2011, starred Jonah as the titular sitter Noah, coaxed into babysitting the kids next door, only to be forced to drag them into a wild night that they could never forget. I personally enjoy this movie. There are some really positive moments that teach people about accepting differences and being your best self, but it's also got genitals being set on fire, no snow, and a lot of swearing, so I get why it has a 22% on Rotten Tomato. The main antagonist of this movie is played by Sam Sam Rockwell, who you may know from movies like Mr. Right, Jojo Rabbit, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This man is a tremendous performer and is probably one of the better parts of the movie. He just wants his frickin' Fabergé egg back! Jonah made Sam's time on set insanely difficult thanks to Jonah constantly breaking character whenever he made eye contact with Sam. A scene where Sam grabs Jonah's face had to undergo over 20 takes because they just couldn't keep it together. Nobody cared about the delays, however, because something tells me everyone on the crew kinda knew what they had gotten themselves into. Number 4. Channing Tatum. In 2012, Jonah and Channing Tatum starred in a comedy reboot of the classic crime series 21 Jump Street for a more modern audience. The film received massive success at the box office, and it was quickly picked up for the sequel treatment. The sequel ended up being one of the few examples in Hollywood history of the second movie being better than the first. It made a lot of money and it was really funny, which is why it was so surprising to hear that the planned threequel, 23 Jump Street, was canned by Sony Studios. The main reason being, well, it was too ambitious for Jonah. Third entry in the franchise was going to be a massive crossover between two Sony properties. Jonah and Channing were set to cross paths with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith's characters from the Men in Black trilogy. The leaked script told the story of Jonah and Channing's characters investigating a new substance at a university, only to discover that the suppliers are extraterrestrials being hunted by the Men in Black. The idea of Jonah and Channing wearing the suits and shades while holding comically large weapons makes my soul sing with joy. But a script was written and ultimately the studio thought it would just not make any money and end up being a misstep in the franchise. Apparently Jonah actually had something to do with this though. While Channing was really excited about the project, Jonah thought the whole thing was going to be a big pain in the butt, and his under-enthusiasm made the studio nervous to go forward with what would have probably been one of the best movies in the last 10 years. I mean, you can't get those images out of your head now, can you? Instead, Sony decided to reboot Men in Black with Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth, and that just needs to be burned and shredded and just gone from existence. Needless to say, Channing has held a grudge towards Jonah ever since he was robbed of the opportunity to fight space aliens alongside Will Smith, and he refuses to ever collaborate with Jonah in the future. Number 3. Jennifer Lawrence. Katniss Everdeen is the role that launched Jennifer's career into what it is today. Since starring in the live-action adaptation of the novel The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Jennifer has been asked to star in films in every genre there is. The film Mother is an introspective horror thriller. She's been in Oscar bait movies like Silver Linings Playbook, and most recently she starred in a Netflix project called Don't Look Up as the leading lady alongside Oscar winner Leonardo DiCaprio. The film received wonderful reviews, and I personally had a great time watching it. One role in particular that was pretty well done was that of Jonah Hill. Jonah played the advisor to Meryl Streep's president character, and he steals every single scene he's in. According to Lawrence, though, it will be the last time that she ever works with Jonah in her life, because when asked about the process of filming with the comedian turned serious actor, she said it was just really difficult. Jonah had a tendency to improvise his lines on set, which would cause the fellow cast to break over and over again. Now, while jokes may be a fun inclusion at times, filming schedules can be pretty tight, and he caused 12-hour days to become 15-hour days. Jennifer may have had fun on set, but she has gone on record saying if she ever needed him for a serious role, she's gonna get somebody else. Number 2. Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen is a big reason that Jonah even has a career. Seth wrote the script for Superbad with his writing partner Evan Goldberg, and he decided to cast a young Jonah as himself in the movie. The film made a lot of money, and it began a highly collaborative relationship between Rogen and Hill. They ended up working together on several projects over the years, from everything from Knocked Up in 2007 to Sausage Party in 2015. Sorry, I get a headache whenever I talk about that movie. And a craving for hot dogs. However, that would be their last collaboration after Seth discovered just how cruel his friend had become. During the Comedy Central roast of James Franco, Seth acted as the host for the event and called out his former buddy, making several jokes aimed at Jonah about his behavior since making a transition into the more serious roles when he starred in the 2011 Oscar bait flick Moneyball alongside Bullet Train star Brad Pitt. He wasn't the only one. Everyone on the dais that had worked with Jonah in the past were also making comments about his behavior before he came up to retort with just the driest jokes of the night. Since the news has broken about his ex coming forward with allegations of mistreatment on Jonah's part, Seth has stated that he hasn't, nor will he ever work with this new mean Jonah Hill anytime soon. And at number 1, it's Brad Pitt. Brad has been dominating the acting world for a long time now in everything from Fight Club to Bullet Train. He steals the show and he captivates the audience. In 2011, he starred alongside Jonah Hill and several Hollywood heavyweights for the Oscar bait movie Moneyball. The film follows Pitt's character, Billy Beane, as the general manager of the Oakland A's, who successfully attempts to assemble a baseball team on a lean budget by employing computer-generated analysis to acquire new players. I'm so Sorry, I'm so bored just saying that. The film received a slew of Academy Award nominations, including Best Performances by an Actor in both a leading and supporting role. Jonah's performance is considered to be one of the best of his career and was the role that launched him into Hollywood's A-list. But Brad has some things to say about that. Over the years, the two developed a close relationship and at one point even hosting get-togethers at each other's houses. When being interviewed about Jonah's time on the project, Pitt acknowledged that his performance was great, but that Jonah's greatest skill is actually his ability to drink 2 bottles of no-no juice at once, calling out Jonah as a party trick master. Number 10. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It doesn't matter how famous you may be, when you enter a country, you gotta go through customs, bud. In 2016, Hollywood heartthrob Johnny Depp and his future nemesis Amber Heard decided to take a little trip to Australia when they were stopped by custom agents. After realizing that the 2 dogs they brought with them were not declared on their forms, Pistol and Boo, terrible names for dogs by the way, were allowed into the country thanks to Amber admitting that she had falsified documents. As part of the investigation that took place, Amber and Johnny were made to record an apology video to the Australian government, while simultaneously acting as a PSA. The most monotone and sad PSA that's probably ever existed. They're literally sitting in a cozy little love seat and staring down at a camera. Not into it like this, they're going down at it like their computer was just on a table that's a little too short. They can also very obviously be seen reading off of prompters or some kind of like a cue card. And while Johnny is not even trying to act like he cares, Amber Heard seems to be engaged the entire time, like she's doing an audition tape or something. At the end of the day, smuggling 2 dogs into Australia was the least of their problems, as we all know now thanks to their very public and messy trial. Number 9. Hannah Brown. Any members of Bachelor Nation surely know about this rough moment in the show's history. A bachelorette by the name of Hannah Brown was on Instagram trying to remember the lyrics to DaBaby's Rockstar, and in doing so, she said one of the no-knowest of no-no words to ever exist, the N-word. She stopped herself for a moment after she said it, but then she continued to mumble along to the song. She received a massive slew of backlash thanks to the astounding 2.8 million people watching her video. She later apologized for the incident and claims that she was under the influence during the clip. Hey, that's not a good argument. She actually didn't even realize what she had said until she started receiving Instagram live comments calling out her behavior and just basically calling her trash. The next day, she released a written apology online, but not a physical one, which was what was really needed. The apology was filled with your typical, "I promise to be better, I have some work to do," that kind of spiel, which literally nobody bought. Rachel Lindsay, who was the Bachelorette's first and only black lead so far, responded to the apology, claiming that the incident was a gross misuse of a platform. Hannah shared her words with millions of people using her face, but she couldn't do the same thing while she was apologizing. If you have the audacity to say that word, whether it be in private or with your friends, then it doesn't matter. Just don't say the N-word ever. Do what I do when I'm singing along to songs like that. Say ninja. Or say nothing at all. Just don't sing those songs. Number 8. Logan Paul. A warning to any of our squeamish viewers, this story is a little wild, so check this out or skip it. Logan Paul, a man now known as WWE Superstar, was once actually a famous YouTube star. With millions of subscribers, his channel's popularity quickly skyrocketed in the early 2010s. Until one day, Logan and his friends decided to go to a famous forest in Japan to film a camping challenge video. A forest that is unfortunately famous for the tragedies that take place there. Many lives have ended in the forest, and some were self-inflicted. Now, while venturing in the forest, Logan and his crew spotted a recently deceased individual just hanging from a tree, and instead of alerting the authorities and cutting the cameras, he acted like it was the wildest thing he had ever seen, all the while wearing a hat designed to look like one of the little green guys from Toy Story. This dude is a child! If you want proof that he is, just watch his apology. Actually don't, I'll just save you the trouble. He actually shouted at the body in the tree asking if it was okay and if they were fooling with them. They stood there filming for over 30 minutes before finally leaving the forest. The video was not demonetized and it received massive backlash. At the beginning and end of the clip, he urges any viewers suffering from mental health issues to seek help, blatantly exploiting the situation. Many viewers felt traumatized by the video and began drowning his channel with negative comments. He released an apology in which he claimed to face a monsoon of negativity, that he doesn't do it for the views, that he just gets them, and he actually spent a good chunk of the video sadly telling the audience how popular he is. Literally, he sat there just like, "I'm sorry, I'm just so famous, it's not my fault people like me." Needless to say, nobody cared for the apology and his YouTube career was in the dumps. But the World Wrestling Entertainment industry doesn't care what you did, so get over there, you little scamp. Number 7. Roseanne Barr. Actress Roseanne Barr was set to star in a revival of her hit sitcom Roseanne in 2018, but that show was abruptly cancelled when she decided to post a racially fueled rant on Twitter. According to Rosie, though, it wasn't her fault. The TV star made inaccurate and inappropriate claims about Valerie Jarrett, who was a former advisor to Barack Obama, and claims the only reason she actually went ahead and posted anything was because of the copious amounts of sleeping pills she had taken. She apologized at first, but through the apology she just defends herself by saying, it was 2 in the morning, I was on Ambien, it was Memorial Day, I went too far. Ah yes, Memorial Day, the maker of many racist tweets, I'm sure. Just in case you didn't already know, blaming anything you do on substances, that's not really a good excuse, yeah? Can't walk up to a cop and be like, oh, I'm sorry I crashed my car into that guy's house, I just ate like 6 Flintstones vitamins and I'm really lightheaded. She continued the apology and capped it off with, forgive my bad jokes. Sounds like me when I'm doing this. She later deleted both her tweets and her account. It seems like someone has finally revoked her internet privileges and placed a password on her social medias. Number 6. Colleen Ballinger. Former YouTuber and current demon Colleen Ballinger has recently been outed as a groomer of her young fans. Now for those who don't know the term groomer, let's keep it that way because it's pretty gross. Colleen is best known for her character Miranda Sings on YouTube, who became so popular that she received her own Netflix series. And if you haven't seen that yet, it's too late, it's long been deleted now. Following the slew of cancellation and backlash from the entire world, Colleen decided to post an apology online, and she did apologize while playing a ukulele. After this woman is shown to be an actual, physical monster, she thought it was appropriate to go online and be like, I'm sorry for what I did, I didn't mean to groom those kids. In response to the cringiest apology of all time, her fans decided to remind her of a little bit of a misstep that she made in her career. A few years ago, she decided that it would be an awesome idea during one of her live shows to sing and dance to Beyonce's Single Ladies. We've all been there, right? But you know where we haven't all been? Doing it in blackface. Yep, there is just a terrible, terrible clip of Colleen barefoot on stage, wildly flailing and waving about just covered in makeup. How did it take so long for that lady to get canceled? None of the parents at that concert were like, man, I love this song. Oh no. Number 5. Mario Batali. In case you didn't know who this man is, you can probably guess what he does by looking at his last name, Batali. Batali was a world-famous TV show chef, hosting his own cooking show and participating in several competition series like Iron Chef America. In 2017, Mario was accused of misconduct by 4 women, and he was forced to step down from his role on television and issued a public apology for his actions. He said that he made mistakes and he was sorry for his actions, but at the end of the long-winded by the numbers apology, he added a link to a recipe for pizza dough cinnamon rolls, adding, hey, in case you're searching for a holiday-inspired breakfast, these pizza dough cinnamon rolls are a fan favorite. That would have been like Logan Paul going, I apologize for my actions, it'll never happen again. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content. The tone-deaf apology became an overnight viral meme. Not only was Mario being called out as a creepy creep from Creepville, he was also being called out for offering such a terrible recipe. Dude, seriously, next time just make it cookies. Or don't harass people. Number 4. Louis C.K. Louis was dominating the comedy scene in the early 2010s thanks to the success of his sitcom based loosely on his life called Louis. In 2017, though, he was forced to make a public apology after it was revealed that he had a problem keeping his trouser snake in its cave. The sitcom star and stand-up comedian was hot off an appearance on the late-night sketch show Saturday Night Live when the allegations began arising. Probably happening after people saw that really weird ice cream sketch that he was in, and if you don't know what that is, keep it that way. It's weird. It was revealed that the rumors were in fact true because Louis posted an apology titled "The Stories Are True," just right at the top. 5 women had alleged misconduct on Louis' part. He exposed himself to the women without their consent. In his apology, he wouldn't stop referring to the power that he had over these women, the strength that he wielded. He said he felt remorseful, but he sounded like a supervillain the whole time. To cap off the tone-deaf apology, he listed all of the projects that he was involved in that would be suffering for his cancellation. Like before he went out, he needed to remind us all how good he was. Oh, I'm sorry for my actions. The worst part is that all of my TV shows and movies are going to suffer because of it. Suck it up, buddy. Number 3, Justin Timberlake. In 2004, a wardrobe malfunction shook the world, because it was 2004. Nothing crazy had really happened yet. The two were performing together during the halftime show at the Super Bowl when Justin accidentally exposed Janet's left nip to the audience. According to Justin's team, he was only apparently meant to remove a rubber part of the costume to reveal a red lace bra. MTV released a statement claiming that the situation was unrehearsed, unplanned, and inconsistent with the assurances they had about the content of their performers. Very, very by the numbers. They claimed that they had no idea that this was even happening until the very last minute. In fact, for some reason, Janet received most of the backlash for the event when it was Justin who was the one that exposed her to the crowd. Janet released a public apology, basically absolving MTV of any wrongdoings. But Justin's apology was just a little harder to watch. At that year's Grammy Awards, Justin took the stage to accept an award for the Best Male Pop Vocal Performance for Cry Me a River. And in order for him to be allowed on stage, he was actually made to issue a public apology for the events at the Super Bowl. It was the most by the numbers apology ever recorded, to the point where he literally says, "What occurred was unintentional, completely regrettable, and I apologize if you were offended." He was trying to be suave when he said it, but it just came off really just bad. This was one of the first times that the world collectively cringed at somebody, so brought us all together in the end. Number 2, Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen had one of the most successful daytime talk shows of all time until 2020. Her show became overwhelmed with accusations of a toxic work environment from former employees. They were claiming that Ellen's happy exterior was nothing more than a facade put in place to keep the audience on her team. A small bit of proof came when she accused 50 Shades of Grey actress Dakota Johnson of not inviting her to a birthday party a few months before she was on the show. Now, Dakota reminded her that she had in fact sent an invitation and received a notice from her producer that she didn't want to attend. Fans began questioning the awkward moment, and the cracks in her appearance grew bigger and bigger. Eventually, an article was released containing testimonies from several former employees, with just too many stories to have been a false narrative. Ellen canceled herself by denying every single thing that she was being accused of, and instead of acknowledging her faults and missteps as a boss, instead, Ellen's fans took to Twitter demanding that she respond to the articles that claimed that she was a short-tempered tyrant. She posted a half-hearted apology to social media and appeared on her talk show to deliver the bad news, while simultaneously trying to save face by claiming that she had no idea what was going on behind the scenes because it was such a big place. She doubled down though, because during that physical appearance on the show, she did an apology in front of her audience. It was a Zoom audience because, no go inside places back then, so she literally edited in laugh tracks and applause during her apology. It's an apology, okay? Not a Netflix special. Number 1, Bryan Adams. A warning to anyone who is sensitive about the year 2020, you might want to just go to the end of the video. Canadian singer-songwriter Bryan Adams was forced to post a public apology for an Instagram post that was racist, crass, and inflammatory, according to CBC News. In 2020, the world was at a standstill, and Bryan, much like the rest of us, were made to stay inside and avoid contact with anyone. To pass the time, he decided to play some music and spread some joy to the world. Oh wait, did I say joy? I meant to say nonsense. Yeah, it's nonsense. He played the song Cut Like a Knife and posted it on Instagram. Apparently on the night he was set to begin a number of gigs at Royal Burt Hall. Now, I was going to quote what he said, but I'm pretty sure this video would get deleted immediately thanks to all of the misinformation. To summarize, he was racist, he was anti-Semitic, he claimed that the situation had been fabricated, and wrapped it up by telling everyone to go vegan. That was probably the worst part of it all. The odd message coupled with the song not only puzzled fans of the singer, but it enraged them. This was some kind of a misguided attempt to open our eyes to something, but all he did was make himself look like a moron. He posted an apology on Instagram saying there was no excuse, and it was just him wanting to rant about animal cruelty and wet markets being a possible source of the virus, and to promote veganism. Okay, but why though, okay? We all saw Tiger King, we know animals need to be saved. Go back to your cave, Brian. Number 10, Tina Turner. She was simply the best. Better than all of the rest. Tina Turner is considered one of the original queens of rock and roll. Between the early 1950s and the mid 2000s, Tina Turner was ripping her way through country after country, delivering hit after hit. What's Love Got to Do With It? Simply the Best, Acid Queen, and those are just some of the songs that were gifted to us during her time as a solo artist. Before divorcing her evil ex, Ike Turner, the couple would perform together as Ike and Tina. Tina's real name was Anna Mae Bullock, and the name Tina was actually forced on her by Ike as a way of controlling her. As many now know, Ike was an absolutely horrible person to Tina, and he did things that I can't talk about on this channel. Which is why, after so many years of overcoming obstacle after obstacle, it crushed the world when Tina was taken from us at the age of 83 on May 24th in 2023. She will always be remembered as a pure soul with a voice of gold. We had so much respect for this woman. She took a name that was meant to bring her down and turned it into a legend. Number 9, Jerry Springer. Well, our guest today may be a little controversial, controversial, but what the heck. Words surely spoken many times by the man that they call Jerry Springer, a name that surely sparks the visual of a fight breaking out on stage and some low-grain cameras capturing it all in front of a live studio audience. The good old days of TV. He hosted The Jerry Springer Show from 1999 to 2016, broadcasting over 1,900 episodes for our viewing pleasure. For anyone that doesn't know, Jerry was known for bringing controversial figures on his show to either discuss or confront the situations surrounding their presence. He brought in men with white cloaks, people who married horses. The spectrum of his guests is wide, which is why his show was just so much fun to watch. It was sad when news broke of his death in 2023 following a long and strenuous battle with pancreatic cancer. Here's hoping that wherever he is, it's just not in the middle of an onstage brawl. Number 8. Angus Cloud. This is the most recent and honestly one of the most devastating entries on this list. Angus portrayed the universally loved character Fez on the show Euphoria, acting as Rue's dealer, aka Zendaya. This past Monday, the Oakland Fire Department was called to his home in California, where he was found deceased, and he had recently been suffering with the loss of his father, which many believe may have led to his passing. Cloud was set to star in several projects in the next few years, as his career had just started thanks to the success of Euphoria. While there is currently no confirmation on the exact cause of his passing, Cloud had a long history with substance control issues and is part of the reason that he delivered such an incredible performance on the show, being able to tap into his real life traumas and use them for his character. Many believe he may have had some type of overdose following the passing of father, but like I said, there is no confirmation. I'm not gonna make any jokes here or say anything to make this a light moment. This guy was an incredible performer, and from what I've been able to read, he was genuinely a wonderful human being. So rest in peace, Angus. Number 7. Sinead O'Connor. Sinead has been serenading people with her voice for a long time, first releasing an album in 1987 called The Lion and the Cobra, and it charted across the globe immediately. Since then, she had a steady career performing in concerts and on talk shows around the world, and in 1992, she made TV history after being banned from Saturday Night Live for standing in front of a live audience and ripping up a photo of the Pope on stage. Now, there was a reason for this, because she was an activist and was simply trying to protest the Catholic Church because they were doing some gross, shady stuff behind the scenes. I'm sorry, did I say were? I meant are. The cause of Sinead passing has not been released to the public, but unfortunately many fans are claiming that it might have something to do with struggles with mental health in recent history, as well as her troubled past with her family. Regardless of why or how it happened, we are very sad to see another talented artist lost in 2023. Number 6. Paul Rubens. Another celebrity that was lost this past week was Mr. Paul Rubens, who many may know as the goofy bike enthusiast Pee Wee Herman. Paul first rose to fame thanks to his character of Pee Wee getting his own movie in 1985, directed by Tim Burton. The movie was so successful that Pee Wee got a morning show on CBS called Pee Wee's Playhouse. Unfortunately, Paul's reputation was slightly tainted in 1991 following an indecent exposure charge after he was feeding the geese at a movie theater. But it was the 90s, and that wasn't even close to the worst thing to happen that year, so he quickly bounced back into the world of acting and starred in movies like Mystery Men and Blow alongside Johnny Depp. Paul had been fighting a long and difficult battle with cancer, something that nobody was aware of until he passed. Much like Chadwick Boseman, it seems like he didn't want his final days to be spent surrounded by people who were prepared for him to go. Instead, he lived his life and he went out on his own terms. So, as someone who grew up with Pee Wee, that one stings. Number 5. Lance Reddick. Good evening, Mr. Wick. Welcome to the Continental. Lance Reddick starred in many TV movies and made small appearances on sitcoms in his early days of acting, but he first broke onto the big screen starring as Anton Lafarge in the 1998 film Great Expectations, which was a modernization of Charles Dickens' classic story of the same name, following a painter in New York City pursuing his childhood love. The film starred Ethan Hawke in the leading role, Gwyneth Paltrow, Hank Azaria, Robert De Niro, but it was Lance that stole the show, and he went on to star in several big budget projects over the years, eventually landing a role on the hit TV thriller series The Wire as Cedric Daniels. He starred alongside actors like Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, Channing Tatum, but the attention was always drawn to him for every moment that he was on screen. Earlier this year, a congestive heart disease took Lance from the world at 61 years old. That's right, the man was only in his 60s. Like, look at him, that was great, good for him. Lucky for us, there was one movie left to be released following Lance's passing called White Men Can't Jump, and it is now available on Disney Plus with Lance starring as one of the main characters, Benji. So if you're missing him, Check it out. Number 4. Richard Belzer. In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police, who investigate crime, and the district attorneys, who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories. Chung-chung! This is the introduction to one of my father's favorite TV shows of all time, Law and Order. Since the day I was brought home, the legendary intro and song was constantly on my screen. I practically grew up with the Special Victims Unit and its team. Richard Belzer played John Munch, a retired detective who returns to the force as a sergeant assigned to the SVU. Richard played Munch for 326 episodes before the show was taken off air in 2016. That didn't mark the end of Richard's acting days, as he went on to star in the popular Robert De Niro pick The Comedian, in which he played a fictionalized version of himself. Fortunately for SVU fans, Richard passed away in February of this year, following years of respiratory and circulatory complications. Looks like crime in the afterlife will never go unpunished again, though. If there is crime, I don't know, do people still do that when they pass away? Number 3. David Crosby. While this last name sounds familiar, David shares no relation to the hockey legend Sidney, which is shocking because he has 6 kids. You would think that one of them would be a hockey player. David Crosby made up a third of the legendary folk rock group Crosby, Stills, Nash, alongside fellow founders Stephen Stills and Graham Nash. After the trio performed together in 1968, they discovered their voices harmonized well and decided that they needed to form a band and keep the good times going. The timing was perfect. David had just been asked to leave the Byrds, Stephen's band Buffalo Springfield had just broken up, and Nash left his band The Hollies the December prior to meeting his bandmates. Eventually, the trio branched out and invited Canadian treasure Neil Young to be the 4th member, performing as Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. They were even a part of the very first Woodstock Festival in 1969. At the end of a tour in the mid-70s, the band split following some tension behind the scenes. They reconciled for the music and have gotten together a few times over the years, sometimes with Young, sometimes without. Through it all, David gave 100% and the music showcased that effort. Unfortunately, earlier this year, Crosby fell ill with a lung infection and passed in his sleep. Before passing, he had been inducted into the Hall of Fame with his fellow bandmates and will always be remembered for his killer pipes and thick mustache. Number 2. Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck was a British musician who first began rising to stardom in the early 1970s after forming the band Night Shift. Eventually that band broke up, but Beck went on to have an awesome solo career, eventually landing him 8 Grammy Award wins, the first being Best Rock and Roll Instrumental Performance for Escape, a song from the album for Flash that was to accompany the movie of the same name. While his name may not be familiar to you, his guitar licks most certainly are. Jeff has contributed his talent to several top charting songs over the years, including Bon Jovi's Blaze of Glory solo album, and he played lead on Roger Waters' concept album Amused to Death, Red Shoes by Kate Bush, and just so many more. In 1992, his former band the Yardbirds was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he famously stated that he wasn't proud of a band that kicked him out. Beck continued to work as a solo artist right up until 2020, when he released a new single album in which he collaborated with Johnny Depp to cover John Lennon's song Isolation. The song came out only 1 month after the events of March 2020, so this cover really hit home for a lot of people. Beck passed away from bacterial meningitis infection in January of this year, taking both his talent and his passion with him. And at number 1, Burt Bacharach. My first introduction to Burt was at the age of 8 when I watched the movie Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. Austin and his date/fellow agent are just enjoying dinner on a double-decker bus in London when Austin gestures and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach." And suddenly there is Burt, playing just a massive piano and singing, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love." Ooh, this moment has lived rent-free in my brain ever since and sparked the random taste in music that I still have to this day. Who is Lizzo? Give me Engelbert Humperdinck any day. Of course, Burt was best known by many people for his musical chops, and it's been said that Burt was one of the most important and influential figures in the pop music industry since the early 1950s. Over the years, Burt collaborated with several well-respected musicians like Tom Jones and Dusty Springfield, and he received 6 Grammys, 3 Academy Awards, and 1 Emmy for his primetime special Singer Presents Burt Bacharach, a live TV taping in which Barbra Streisand appeared and they played music, discussed their careers, and sang their favorite song. Burt was tickling the keys till the day he passed, collaborating with many composers and lyricists over the years. He even composed and arranged an original score for a film called called A Boy Called Poe at the age of 88 years old. In February of this year, Burt passed away at the age of 94 and closed his piano lid for good. But between him, David, and Tina, Heaven's gonna have some pretty solid music this year.